So let's bring things full circle. The opportunity for elite high performance. What attracted you to joining the company?
Yeah, great question. So again, one of the great things that MIQ prides itself on is their leadership development. And, high performance coaching for me prior to joining MIQ was completely off my radar. I wasn't even aware of it. I didn't even know it existed. And so during my time at MIQ, I had, the opportunity to work with elite high performance. And it was game changer, absolutely game changer for me. I pivoted from a high achiever to a high performer. And, sort of the difference between the two of those are is a high achiever is, driven by external validation, 1.0 leader, if you will, leading by fear in a roundabout sort of way sometimes. And then a high performer is intrinsically driven, right? Their confidence is fueled from the inside and not needing that external validation, and then become a 2.0 leader, human centric, right?
I see something in there from your past. I got to throw this out here immediately because you didn't do any dance competitions and you have no regrets over that. So it shows that going back to what you were originally doing, you didn't need that sort of external validation where, ooh, I won a medal. But that totally plays into what you're saying here between, what was it, a high performance leader versus a high performance achiever?
Well, high achiever versus a high performer.
Achiever versus high performer. There we go.
Yeah. A high achiever is not what we want to be. We want to be a high performer because we're intrinsically driven, and the confidence comes from within. Not, am I doing a great job? What do you think of this? And just constantly needing that external validation, right? Showing up and taking space in the world as yourself and being proud of that, right? So elite for me was sort of the eye opener of what leadership actually is and what it can do to change a leader's perception and your limiting beliefs. And I can go on and on about this forever, but it was obviously definitely a passion point for me as I watched my own behaviors change, but then in turn trickled down to the team and how we showed up as a team together because I was stepping up and I was showing up differently. So for elite for me was something in my heart that I'd always kind of knew was there. But it gave me the opportunity to develop it. Neuroscience, neuroplasticity is something that has blown my mind and something that is, kind of a bit of a passion point for me in terms of understanding, rewiring the brain, if you will, and how you show up, challenging yourself, self-leadership, self-awareness, just all of the wonderful things that, executive high performance delivers.
So is it safe to say that elite is completely different from any other job you've done before?
100%.
What was that adjustment period like then, if this is completely different from, say, your time at MIQ, at Rogers, or Brunico?
Because you're not selling a product, right? You're selling self-awareness, if you will. Like if you actually peel it back and think about what executive coaching and leadership does, is it makes you look internal. And a lot of people are not prepared to do that work. I mean, 95% of people think that they are self-aware, right? Think they are. But when you start to unpack that and you kind of get down to, sort of what makes and drives you, your beliefs that then, kind of fuel your emotions, and then your emotions drive your physiology. Your physiology then drives your reactions to things. And when you start to break that down and take a look at it and really do a lot of deep work internally, you'll be surprised at how many people are actually not self-aware. So as much as right now I'm, working, with CROs and C-suite, that piece of it is the same in terms of the empowering and the growing and the development. But the unpacking of human emotion is something that has just been a massive learning curve, but a great learning curve and something that I'm extremely passionate about.
You taught and mentored dancers. Do you see those kind of skills coming back from your dancing days and factoring into what you're doing at Elite?
Great question. I've never had that question before. I can definitely see how it could trickle into each other. I'd have to give that a little bit more thought, but for sure, I mean, teaching is the same as leading, right? You've got to show up in a certain way. You've got to put your money where your mouth is. If you're not an expert in your own right, nobody's going to look to you to follow or, take your advice or whatever it might be, right? So the experience definitely has to follow in terms of the teaching or leading. So I can see how it would trickle into one another, but I've actually never thought of that. That's a great question.